Oh, hello. Welcome to Caffeinated with Charlie William Parks. I am Charlie. Episode 2 right here. The espresso strikes back. I know what you're thinking, nerds. You're thinking, that should be episode 5. I got you. I was thinking the same thing. But not everyone's nerdy like us. This is where I give you everything that enriches your life, from health and wellness to art and music. We cover it all in one place. You don't have the time to listen to 50 podcasts. I don't have the time to listen to 50 podcasts. You're busy, I'm busy, I do the work for you. We meet here once a week. It's so easy. I'm giving you immediately applicable value and knowledge. You can use it right away. Whether you're on your way to work or you're home with kids or you're like home with me with cats and kids and a wife and all that stuff. This is for you. This is your pre-workout for the soul. Like, subscribe, comment, follow. There's buttons. There's so many buttons. Just press them all. Don't even think about it. It's so much fun to hit buttons. And with me as always, of course, is young Jamie to help me bring all the things on screen that I need. What? I was told if I started a podcast, I would get an assistant named Jamie to help me do things. Everyone doesn't get one. That is not what you told me. That is disheartening and disappointing. This is bullshit. On today's show, we are going to talk about creatine. What is creatine? Why do you hear so much about it? Should you take it? Do you want to try it? The maintenance phase of dieting. What is it and when would you want to do it? In Culture and the Arts, The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. We will be talking literature. If you've read it, you're ahead of the game. If not, I've read it. I'm going to tell you how it's helped me. And yes, one agreement in particular has changed my life. In ecology or viticulture, which are just kind of fancy ways of saying wine, red or white, not like complaining. We will talk Maynard, James, Keenan, and Caduceus Cellars. Who is this guy? Why do I like him so much? And why does his wine taste so darn good? Lastly, we're going to bring it back to nutrition. I'm giving you my recipe for anti-inflammatory wellness shots. It's going to help you jumpstart your day. And if you're dealing with inflammation and that kind of stuff, it's going to help with that too. So before we begin, first we must discuss coffee of the day. Today we will be drinking Black Velvet by Atomic Coffee Roasters. They've been featured on this show multiple times. It is excellent. Unlike last week's coffee, this is full-bodied and dark. I love dark roasts. Has elements of burnt sugar, graham cracker, and malted milk balls. I just like saying it. Malted milk balls. AtomicRoastery.com. Check them out. You might like it. Malted milk balls. All right, let's do this. Creatine. You may have heard of creatine, good or bad. But what is creatine? It kind of sounds like when you keep saying it over and over, creatine, like, is that what they gave to Captain America to kind of, I don't know, maybe, stay with me. Creatine is a compound that comes from amino acids, not used to make protein, much like taurine. It's found in foods like beef and pork and fish. Creatine is made in the cells of your body every single day, which is why it's found in animal sources like beef and pork and fish. So obviously for that reason, meat eaters, people who eat meat, omnivores like me, are going to have higher creatine levels in their body than people who are maybe vegan or vegetarian, and that's okay because you can supplement it. And even if you do eat meat, one of the reasons you may want to supplement it and not solely rely on animal sources is that to get the benefits of creatine, to get 5 milligrams a day, you would need to eat an enormous amount of meat, an enormous amount of protein, which is not only expensive, but calorically, that's going to be very high in calories. So even if you are like me, someone who's an omnivore, you eat meat, poultry, fish, whatever, occasionally you have red meat, I still supplement creatine. If you're a paleo, keto, carnivore person and you're just consuming meat all day, this may be less of an issue for you. That's okay too. So creatine, it is not a steroid. It is a compound coming from amino acids. Taking creatine does not mean you're taking steroids. Only taking steroids means you're taking steroids. Or TRT in some cases. Another episode. Why am I even associating creatine with taking steroids? Because when creatine became popular in the early to mid-90s, there were many misconceptions about it. I myself can remember an instance where I was at school, and a friend of mine, a young lady, had asked me, "What supplements do you take?" And I mentioned I was taking creatine at the time. She had told me, "You are taking steroids." I was not taking steroids. That's kind of crazy. She was a little wacky now that I think about it. You really can't get much further apart than steroids and creatine, being that one is like a hormone or a byproduct of testosterone, and the other is a byproduct of amino acids. So you're safe there. Moms, dads, if you find creatine in your teenager's drawer, it's, not the white powder you're looking for. All right, so what does creatine do? Why is it talked about so much? First of all, creatine pulls water wherever it goes, predominantly in your muscles. It saturates your muscles with water, and creatine in your muscles is stored as what's called phosphocreatine. Think of it this way, it's like it's hydrating your muscles. The same way your body needs water and electrolytes to be hydrated and you feel your best, your muscles do better when they are saturated with phosphocreatine. The primary role of creatine is to create energy in your body. Specifically, this is where it helps athletes, people like me who lift weights or whatever you do, specifically energy production during high intensity exercise. This is like if you're doing HIIT cardio or you're lifting really heavy in the gym or you're boxing or you're going for a PR or maybe you're an athlete and it's all about performance. This is for you. Basically, when you are trying to push the envelope physically, creatine is there to assist, and it does. So the way we create energy in our bodies is with ATP, which is a molecule, adenosine triphosphate. So what creatine does is, when ATP is used during exercise, for example, heavy lifting, something like that, you use the energy lifting something, and the ATP becomes what's called ADP because it loses a phosphate. ADP is adenosine diphosphate. The specific science isn't super important for you to know. It is important for you to know that ATP is changing to ADP when you're using energy, especially in high performance situations. And what creatine does for you, here's kind of the magic of this supplement. Creatine takes the ADP, transforms it back to ATP, kind of recharging it for you, leaving you with more energy and a steadier supply of energy throughout your workout, throughout your performance. So in layman's terms, the more creatine you have in your muscles, the more you have in your body, the longer you can go, the harder you can go, the harder you can train, the more energy and explosiveness you have, which is pretty good. Now, creatine also helps your body synthesize glycogen from your muscles. Glycogen we talked about a little bit last week too. Glycogen is your body's preferred way of storing carbohydrate in your muscles. Again, it's equating to more energy and more power. They're finding that supplementing with creatine can raise your levels by 20 to 40%, which is awesome, which is really notable for a supplement to do. The supplements also are almost always vegan. They generally do not come from animal sources. If that's something you're concerned with, you can get a creatine supplement and not have to worry about that. Creatine is also shown to help with recovery after a tough workout. Again, more reasons. You got all these reasons here. Did you buy it yet? Now, you may know a bit now about the muscle building effects of creatine, but wait, there's more. So not only is it helping you build your biceps or your glutes like me that I've been working on a lot lately, but you may be interested to know that creatine is also extremely beneficial for your brain. Your brain thrives on energy. Your brain is always hungry for energy. And creatine can help power your brain much the same way it helps power your muscles, kind of helping your brain thrive. This is improving brain function. I know I need this right now. I'm not sleeping enough. I got a new kid. They've been using intelligence tests and memory tests and all over cognition tests, and they're showing this from study to study. It is helping. The big thing right now, what it's doing for your noggin. Because it's helping with processing speeds in your brain, it may even help fight against cognitive decline, which of course is more of an issue as we age, for most of us. So again, I can't think of any aspect in life, whether it be stress or studying for a test or just trying to complete daily tasks, potentially needing to recall some things from memory, where creatine would not probably be a pretty huge benefit. So what are my experiences with creatine? It was said for a while that in order to take creatine, like when it first came out, you had to do what was called loading creatine. That meant like instead of taking 5 milligrams a day, which I take now, which is a normal dose for most everyone, you had to take like 20 or 30 milligrams a day for like a couple of weeks or whatever it was. It led to a lot of bloating, a lot of discomfort, as it did with a lot of people. And I didn't take it for a while because I thought I didn't do well with it. I was wrong. It's now shown that the loading's unnecessary. Most people are good taking 5 milligrams a day, and you don't have to load it and get the gastrointestinal upset. Totally unnecessary. If you wanted performance results as soon as possible and you needed to load and saturate your muscles with creatine as soon as possible, I suppose that's something you could do. I just wouldn't recommend doing it because you don't need to do it. And within 3 weeks, your creatine levels are fully stored anyway. You don't need to do that. So creatine and water retention, this is kind of a common misconception. Creatine does pull water wherever it goes. However, studies have shown the vast majority of the water is what's called intracellular, meaning it's doing exactly what you want if you were to supplement creatine. It is pulling water into your muscles. It is filling them, it is saturating them with creatine. It is not going to make you look puffy or bloated. That will not happen. If anything, by having your muscles a little bit more saturated, you may look leaner on creatine because you would be stretching out the fat and you may look more buff or toned or however you want to look. So if you are bloated from creatine, it is most likely because you went through that loading phase that I talked about. It is very rare that people respond to creatine in a bloating way. It is also very rare that someone is what they call like an anti-responder to creatine. A very, very small portion of people don't get benefits of creatine. The vast majority do. The other thing with creatine that's really, really powerful and why we're talking about it on the show is creatine is probably the most extensively studied supplement there is. The research is totally conclusive in that creatine is the real deal. It really helps. Is it like taking something crazy like a weight loss drug like Ozempic or whatever the hell's out there today, or taking steroids? Of course not. This is a healthy thing. This is a byproduct of an amino acid. But the fact that they show this thing works is tremendous in its own right. The only things that I can think of that are as well studied and shown to enhance performance as much as creatine is you got like whey protein, caffeine, and maybe omega-3 fish oils, omega-3 fatty acids. So I don't think you can do much better than creatine in terms of the risk, very little to none, other than a tummy ache, versus the reward, big muscles. There was one study with creatine and hair loss showing that it increased DHT. Um, Creatine doesn't affect androgen levels, and this has not been replicated in any other studies. So if you're worried about losing your hair with creatine, you may have read that. I don't really think you have to worry about that. So I just started taking creatine again after my most recent cut. I have a new baby. I have a 2-year-old. I work all day. I work out. I could use the help of creatine for my body and for my mind. At the time of this recording, I've been taking creatine now for a little over a week since I just started again. You don't have to cycle on and off. I'm taking it now for I think 9 days, and I already see a difference in the volume of my muscles. I think I'm going to continue to get a little bit stronger. I'm kind of seeing some lifts ticking up, but I do see a difference already. But again, until you get to that 3-week mark, you're really not fully saturated in terms of the creatinine levels in your muscles. I started taking creatine again once I went back into maintenance mode after my most recent fat loss phase, which we're going to talk about next. And I also want to share my future results with you with creatine as well. So whether it be the 1 month, the 2 month, the 3 month, the 6 month mark, I want to share with you. This is my anecdotal evidence. This is my experience with creatine. This is what it did for me. This is what it might do for you, I hope. So which creatine should you buy? You do not need to spend a lot of money on creatine. I always opt for Thorne supplements. I will post a link in the description because they're a higher quality. They're better tested. I trust them. I believe in them. And even with Thorne, I think you're paying like, it turns out to be something like $14 a month for the supply. It's still a very cheap supplement. So in that regard, again, much like taurine last week, this is not a big investment to try taking creatine and see what it does for you. But like anything, you have to be your own best advocate. You always talk to a doctor or whatever when you start something new, and keep an eye on it. Creatine monohydrate is absolutely fine in terms of which creatine to buy. That's the standard. Creatine monohydrate is fine. Do not buy any creatine that is a fancy name creatine, or especially if it says does not cause water retention. The whole point of taking creatine is you want water retention. What you do not want is not to have the water pulled into the muscles. So if they're saying it doesn't cause water retention, that's for 2 reasons. 1, they're lying to you, or 2, it just doesn't work. So it's probably not creatine. Or maybe it's poor advertising. Either way, you want creatine that works. Let me know in the comments your experiences with creatine. Are you taking it? Will you take it? And what other supplements do you want to hear more about? All right, maintenance mode. What is maintenance mode or a maintenance phase of dieting? And when we talk about dieting, we don't mean this little section of time when we are trying to, lose a bunch of fat or gain a bunch of muscle or whatever it is. It's not what you do when you're getting ready for a wedding or the beach. Dieting is your whole how you eat every day for your life. So what's maintenance? Maintenance is when you're eating at a caloric level, like it sounds, where you're maintaining energy expenditure, meaning if you're burning 2,000 calories a day, you're eating 2,000 calories a day. It sounds kind of simple, but it can be really powerful if you were just bulking or cutting or doing all kinds of stuff, especially if you've been trying to lose weight and you have been in a calorie deficit for a while. So, who is maintenance for? Who wants to go into maintenance? Well, if you're happy with your physique the way it is, and let's say you just don't want to really gain weight or lose weight, you're performing well, maybe you're an athlete, you don't want to lose or gain weight, you're really happy where you're at for whatever reason, maintenance is great. Um, let's say you just came out of a cutting phase or a fat loss phase and you're experiencing what's called diet fatigue, where you're not feeling so good. You're foggy and you're grumpy and your metabolism has slowed because you've dieted so long. Maintenance is a great phase to go into. I also really like maintenance phase around the holidays. The reason is cutting around the holidays and being in a deficit around the holidays can be really, really tough. I also think bulking around the holidays is not a great idea because people sometimes get in their mind, I'm bulking, I'm gaining weight, I'm gaining muscle. And then it's like, I'm eating, I'm gaining weight. And they're not quite as distinct as they should be about, all right, I want to gain weight or put on muscle, but I also want to consume foods that are relatively healthy, like the majority of the time. That's the big difference between a clean bulk and a dirty bulk. A clean bulk is good and a dirty bulk is kind of bad. You don't want to just be consuming crap. So I, in particular, really like maintenance around the holidays too. I recently did a cut through the holidays and it's tough. But when you're going into maintenance, you can allot calories to certain days. So, for example, around Thanksgiving, you could allot yourself a lot more than maintenance and pull those calories from other days in the week, and you're going to stay the same, right? Minus a little water retention and whatnot the day after, the volume of food, you'll be 10 pounds heavier, but you won't have gained any fat. So, maintenance during the holidays, great idea. In my opinion, don't try and cut where you're going to make yourself nuts. And also, don't try and bulk necessarily where now you're eating way too much crap and you're gaining much too much weight and you're gaining a lot more fat than muscle in the first place. That's not good. Something that I hear a lot people ask, and I see a lot of correspondence on social media. What an elegant way to say it is, can I build muscle in a maintenance phase? Like, people really don't want to be in a surplus because they're afraid to gain fat. So, can I gain muscle while I'm maintaining my calories? This is as my beautiful wife loves to hear me say. It's called main gaining, which is total bro speak for, I don't know. It doesn't sound great, main gaining, but whatever it is. I'm making main gains over here. Main gaining, is it possible? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Recent studies are kind of showing that, and again, they're controlled clinical trials, which the more controlled they are, they have to be shorter. You're not going to usually get very long clinical trials, but you can put on muscle in maintenance. Is it going to be as much muscle as if you were in a surplus, even a small surplus, let's say 5% or 10% or 15%? No, I don't think it is. I think if you're trying to put on muscle solely, you want to be in a small surplus. So, like if you're eating 2,000 calories a day, you might want to eat 2,100 to 2,300. That's cool. You're not going to put on a lot of fat. And when you feel like you've built enough muscle, you can go into a maintenance, you can go into a cutting phase. You're you're not going too crazy. But if you really want to be in maintenance and you're, for whatever reason, whether you're on camera or you sport wise don't want your weight to shift too much, let's say you're a boxer or a wrestler, it looks like you can put on muscle in maintenance mode or maintenance phase. I don't know you're putting on as much muscle though, so weigh that. So we're talking about maintenance here, right? So maintenance is the in between, and maintenance is usually what happens after a bulk or a cut. But it begs the question, if I want to put on muscle and I want to lose fat, what should I start with, right? Should I be trying to gain the muscle first or should I be trying to lose the fat first? I would say start at a healthy body fat percentage first for you, healthy for you. Not what you see me, this person on TV, wherever, but what is healthy for you. For men, that's going to be anywhere between 8 and 22%. For women, it's going to be a little bit higher because women's bodies naturally hold a little more fat. For a woman, that it might be like 14 to 30%. I think you want to find a body fat first that you feel good with, that you feel healthy with. Then from there, you can bulk, you can cut, you can do whatever you want. There is also, if you haven't been training or dieting for very long, You can do kind of a body recomp sometimes where you're putting on muscle and gaining fat too. Body recomp we're going to cover in another episode. And remember too, in terms of, what your fitness goal is, this is going to be different for everyone. Some people are going to have an easier time putting on muscle. Some people are going to have an easier time losing fat. Just because it's more difficult for you, it doesn't mean you can't do it. It means you need more knowledge, you need more preparation, you need to know what goes into it. So don't be discouraged if you've had trouble over the years putting on muscle or losing fat. You can still do it. You just need to take some time to have a really concise plan. So my experiences. Right now I am in maintenance. Why did I go into maintenance? I went into maintenance mode because I just had a fat loss phase. And at the end of it, after maybe 4 months, let's say, I started experiencing what is called diet fatigue. And I just was feeling like, I'm a little hungrier than I want to be. Maybe I'm a little bit more irritable than I would like to feel. I knew my wife and I were about to have a new baby, a beautiful baby girl. And I said, let me get out of this cut, this fat loss phase, weeks prior to the baby being born. So when the baby was born, I would be feeling good and I would be like getting rid of that fatigue back to where I want to be. So, what am I noticing about being in maintenance versus being in a cut? Well, first, again, that diet fatigue is gone. I feel great. I'm eating enough food, so that's awesome. I'm not sleeping as much as I'd like, but nutritionally, I'm doing pretty good. Um, I am noticing in the gym, my performance is great because I'm eating more and I'm more satiated, and my muscles are more filled with glycogen, and now creatine is helping elevate those levels. So I feel a lot better at maintenance. I feel like this is a good place for me to be. My future plans could be cutting again, it could be bulking, or it will likely be reverse dieting, which we will be covering on next week's episode. This is something for men and specifically women that you guys want to really check out. Is there a way to rev your metabolism and potentially eat more food and gain less weight, lose weight, eating more food? There may be. That is a reverse diet. So next week, we're going to talk about that. The reason women may want to check this out: as a woman, you're generally smaller than a man. Generally, you generally can't consume as many calories as a man can. So when women yo-yo diet, and men too, but when women yo-yo diet over the years, a lot of the times they're like eating 800 calories and they're not losing fat anymore. And it's like, where do you go from there? 500? No, you can't. You reverse diet. Next week, we're covering that. That sounds pretty good to lose weight and eat more. I might want to check that out. I might want to subscribe. All right, on to culture and the arts. Why do we talk about culture and the arts on a show about health and wellness? Well, because health and wellness is more than you looking in the mirror or what you eat. Health and wellness is also how you feel. It's about enriching your life, your body, and your brain. We cover things on this show that hopefully will be enriching to your whole life. And, I hope you stick around for this because you may find something or learn something new that you really enjoy and you like, and it makes you feel good. And there's really nothing more powerful you can do for your health than feeling good. So that is an exciting prospect to me. Young Jamie, can you pull? We don't have a Young Jamie. So the Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I may not be saying that right. I would venture a guess, even if you have not read it, you may have heard of this book. There's a good chance you've heard of it because it's a really profound book. I've read it 2 or 3 times now because you want to be refreshed. It begins with this idea that as we grew up, we were given a set of rules. We were given a set of guidelines by our parents that they were given by their parents all back to the dinosaurs. And these rules became our beliefs. So even if we don't agree with these beliefs or we have resistance towards them, this affects us on a lot of different levels of our consciousness. And of course, it can lead to crummy feelings. It can lead to guilt. This goes on long enough that eventually we don't even need society or our parents watching over us. We're kind of policing ourselves now. And my 2 cents here, and where I maybe would add something to this, is a lot of the time when we're creating these beliefs, we'll create an identity out of these beliefs where we will relate to them to the point that we make it us. And an attack on the belief, it could be a good food or a bad food, ends up becoming an attack on our person, who we are as a human being. So we're rewarding ourselves when we're abiding by the rules. We're punishing ourselves when we're not abiding by the rules. And challenging the rules is just like a big no-no because it just doesn't feel right. Side note here, because we do talk health and nutrition also, this is like someone who grew up very poor and maybe didn't have enough food, as sad as that is. And now, later in age, they may be overweight and they can't stop eating because that feeling from childhood just didn't go away. That's a real thing. That's a real thing that people deal with. And it's guilt and judgment, not just for ourselves now, but now it's like all over society. We're judging everybody. And Don Miguel Ruiz has a quote, and he says, just being ourselves is the biggest fear we have as humans. I'd even take this a step further. I don't even know that it's always conscious. I think it's subconscious too. I think Dom may be giving our psyche too much credit. I certainly hope the book isn't that much of a downer. It is not. It's actually a really uplifting book. That being said, where do the 4 agreements come into play here? It helps us create some new agreements that we have with ourselves, and it gives us 4 that are transcendent. It really helps empower us. It really helps transform our lives. And it also makes us, puts us in a position where we're not living out of fear, because who wants to live out of fear? That doesn't sound very good. We don't want to be the anxiety mouse that's afraid the other mouse is going to eat our cheese. The foundation we need to remember is the most important agreements are the ones we make with ourselves. And if we're conscious of what our agreements are, we can kind of screw with them. We can change them. We can make them healthier. So what the heck are these 4 agreements anyway? 1, be impeccable with your word. That's the first one. Our words are powerful. We may not intend to cause ourselves or other people harm, but sometimes the intention or the motivation isn't even relevant. The words matter. The way we speak to ourselves, the way we speak to others matters. I think also a really good place to start with it is focus on yourself first. Focus on how you are speaking to yourself and what you're kind of not even necessarily verbalizing out loud, but what are you saying to yourself in terms of, the guilt, maybe the things you don't like, the shame, whatever it is that you feel. And I think that once you can learn to be gentle with yourself and speak to yourself in a kinder way or a more loving way, that transcends to how you speak to other people too, because you're happier. I think the biggest thing I've taken from the first agreement is how often I'm judging myself, and I want to be aware of that. 2, don't take anything personally. This is a really hard agreement. Speaking for myself, at least. Sometimes, looking back at a situation, I'll get it, but in the moment, I'm like, why were they so mean to me? Not everything is about you. Not everything is your fault. Not everything is in your control of how you acted. Sometimes it's the other person, it's what's going on with them, it's what happened leading up to that event, or even what they're maybe afraid of anxiety wise. I know myself. Sometimes, you have the choice to believe or not believe what other people say to you. Sometimes you just have to be conscious and aware of even that you can make that choice. The third agreement, in my opinion, is the most important agreement, which is don't make assumptions. When we're interacting with other people and there's an unknown aspect to that relationship, our mind will make assumptions to give us closure. Our mind doesn't like to not know things. And whether the answer we've created is correct or justified, or it could be crap, our mind doesn't always care because it feels safe. We've reached a conclusion. Having an answer in itself sometimes can make us feel better than not knowing something, even if the answer is totally wrong or frankly terrifying. I think the cure to this a lot of the times is asking questions and not overestimating or underestimating ourselves in a sense. The fourth agreement is always do your best. It's a really important agreement because it allows the other ones to come to fruition. You will not always do your best. You will not always be at your best. But if you're not doing any less than, or you're not trying to do more than what's your best right now, you won't be disappointed. Bring it to the gym. Always do your best. Every day is not going to be your best workout. Same thing with your diet. Are you adhering to it the way you'd like to? Some days you will, some days you will not. If you're doing your best, you're doing your best. Start there, and then you can conquer it. Also, when you know you're doing your best, I think you enjoy the process more. You can live life a little bit more intensely, and I think you can accomplish more of your goals because you feel better about the moments you're not at your best. So when you're really, really tuned in, you recognize it and you're revving on all engines. Vroom, vroom. So why is the third agreement, in my opinion, the most important and the most powerful? It's because of cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is the mental discomfort that comes from holding two conflicting beliefs. People seek to find consistencies in their attitude and their perceptions. The inconsistency can totally dictate how people feel and how people act. People will attempt to get rid of the tension in different ways. They might reject information. They may ignore facts. They may They may avoid new information because, frankly, the new information is conflicting. That's not a great feeling. It's not that they don't even necessarily think the facts are true. It's that it's messing with their identity. It's messing with what they believe is them. We see it socially, we see it politically, we see it environmentally, we see it in family structure. It's often why people can't relate to each other and find common ground. It's because they're too identified with a belief and they've made an identity out of it. I mean, look at diet beliefs. What if I made a career selling you the Charlie diet where we only eat raw porcupine? And they call me the porcupine king. And then one day the evidence comes out that I wasn't just eating raw porcupines who looked terrific. I actually was taking steroids or something even more sinister like carbohydrates. You're screwing with my porcupine business endeavor, which is not cool. It bought me this studio, all that porcupine money. And you're also messing now with my sense of self. I mean, I can't transition now from the porcupine diet to the Mediterranean diet. Mediterranean diet? I mean, that sounds ridiculous. Uh, I mean, no one would take me seriously. So, this is a very realistic example of someone who is demonstrating cognitive dissonance. I try my best not to make assumptions for this reason. I try, I screw up, I fail sometimes, I do better other times. And I think, in essence, by holding that third agreement very close to me, it's bettered every relationship in my life and a whole lot of situations in my life where they would have been much worse if I was solely assuming what was going on with somebody else. I'm leaving a link for you. Get the book. All right, moving on. Maynard James Keenan and Caduceus Vineyards in Arizona and why you might want to try their wine. I've got one right here with me. So, who is Maynard James Keenan? He is a singer, songwriter, philanthropist, and a record producer. He's best known as the singer of the rock bands Tool, A Perfect Circle, and Pussifer. In addition to his music careers, Keenan owns Merkin Vineyards and Caduceus Cellars. So why am I telling you about him? Well, because I love his music and his wine is fantastic. It's really, really good. And maybe they'll hear me talking to you about them and maybe they'll send me free wine. Think of how drunk I'll get for so little cost. So winemaking in Arizona actually goes back to about the 18th century. When Spanish priests started planting grapevines for use in religious ceremonies. What makes this vineyard in Arizona so interesting is it's located in Page Springs, which has become one of the fastest growing wine regions in Arizona. That means he's growing wine in the desert conditions of the Verde Valley. Really cool. Most of the vineyards in Arizona are further southeast, near Tucson. I think the difference in geography is making for a very different taste, which I really, really love and enjoy. I think also a lot of people would agree with that, which is why the region in whole is growing really fast there with people who love wine like me. So Caduceus's first wines in 2005 sold out really, really quickly. I'm sure a lot of it having to do with Maynard's rock star status and people, the fans being passionate. Sure. But over the years, I can see how Caduceus's following is much more than him as a rock star. What's really cool about Maynard having this wine endeavor, this business too, is that all of his bands have to tour and do everything around his wine schedule. So whether he's harvesting or he's processing the wines or he's bottling the wines, they're like, okay, he's like, these are the times of the year you just can't bother me. I got to do wine stuff. And if it's not tough enough negotiating, time with two other bands, you must negotiate it with my grape as well. I love that he is so passionate about winemaking that he's willing to tell three very successful, highly monetizing bands, like, you're going to have to wait. There was a documentary released in 2010 called Blood into Wine. It's a really cool perspective of Maynard starting out in this, going from rock star to wine connoisseur, grape grower thing. It's really, really cool, and it shows you it in a whole different way, which is I recommend that too. It's a really cool documentary. Caduceus in Jerome, Arizona, is the wine tasting cellar. It's literally open just about every day of the year. My wife and I got a chance to visit a few years ago. We had the opportunity to meet Keenan's wife, Jen. She's not only the co-owner, but the co-manager of the cellar and the store. She was really, really nice to meet. She was really cool to talk to. And we got to learn a lot more about the vineyards too, which was great. If you're a fan of his music too, which you do not need to be a fan of his music to love this wine, there's some really cool memorabilia in the store too that I enjoyed looking at. So, what Caduceus wines do I have right now? What do I recommend? What am I drinking? Well, first you should go on the website and see what you might like, whether you like reds or whites or whatever you like the most. Different essences, different grapes. You may also find some of these wines just really, unique, and it's like something you've never tried before, which is cool too. I most recently am holding and have been drinking their 2021 Anubis. I would say it is a full-bodied red wine. It's a combination of a Cabernet Sauvignon, which is a really full-bodied red, a Cabernet Franc, which is really bright and a peppery red, and also a wine called Aglianico. I had never even heard of Aglianico before I got this wine from them. Aglianico, again, is usually very full-bodied, red, it's leathery, it's earthy, it's really, really nice. I also have a bottle of their Marzo. I have a bottle of their experimental run on a Sauvignon from 2013. I'm really looking forward to drinking those too. Caduceus.org, check them out. As long as you're over 21 years old, go buy some of that and enjoy it and drink it. And, not too much, but have a good time with it. It's delicious, delicious wine. Let me know in the comments too if you've tried Arizona wines, if you like Arizona wines, and if you're going to try Caduceus. I'd love to hear what you think of it. All right, last up today as I put my wine bottle down. Anti-inflammatory wellness shots. These will have a lot of immune benefits with a focus on anti-inflammation benefits. If you're dealing with the kind of thing, this is going to help. You take one of these every day like I do. All right, we're going to start with the blender. We use the Nutribullet. It's fantastic. I'm posting a link in the description for the one that we use. Highly recommend the Nutribullet. And it supports the channel too if you're into that sort of thing. So first, you're going to start with your base. You're going to use 3 stalks of celery. You're going to use 2 oranges, which are loaded with vitamin C, 1 apple, 2. That's going to be your base. You're going to chop these up. Okay, this is all going in chopped. Next, you're going to add the anti-inflammatory foods. You're going to start with ginger. I love ginger. This is to taste. I use about a big hand, palm-sized hand amount of ginger in there. Chop that up because you want it to fit in the bullet. You want to get as much in there as you can. Next, you're going to add turmeric. I use less turmeric than ginger, but still a good amount, a good little handful of it. You're going to add 2 lemons. You're going to get the skin off of them, chop them up, and put them in there too. Lemons are going to have an anti-inflammatory benefit. They're also going to have a real benefit on regulating your blood sugar, which is great too. Another little perk of this wellness shot. Next is apple cider vinegar. I am using a lot of this in mine. And next week, we're going to talk all about apple cider vinegar and what it does for you, what it can do, why you might want to be using a lot of this stuff too. Add apple cider vinegar to yours to taste. For a Nutribullet, I'm probably adding at least 3 or 4 tablespoons of it. If I'm making multiple, I'll add more. So you're gonna blend this up, and what you're gonna do is you can use a cheesecloth, but when it's done in the blender, you can use a cheesecloth to kind of get all the juices out of it, or I use a strainer and a ladle, and I just kind of keep pushing down on it where you're getting rid of the fiber and the pulp, which usually you want. Fiber is really good, but this is just getting all of the nutrients into the shot because it's gonna be ultra concentrated. Listen, I store these in mason jars. Take one of these every day. Have a shot or 2 of these every day. This is really going to help you in terms of inflammation. This is really good for you. Anti-inflammatory benefits. A lot of vitamins in there too. I think you will love this. I will get the recipe in the show notes too. If you're driving and you can't write this thing down. This will hopefully kick your health goals in the ass. This is delicious. These things rock and I love them. Go for it. Try it. All right, that is our show for today. Next week, we're going to talk about reverse dieting, getting your metabolism back up to speed. We're going to talk about burning more fat while eating more. What? We're going to talk about apple cider vinegar. We're going to talk about some Hollywood physiques and whether or not they're healthy to aspire to. We may do a deep dive on some music too. I'm Charlie William Parks, and again, if you like health and wellness and culture and the art, if you feel this offers you value, if you're like me, if you're a lifetime student, subscribe, comment on the platform you're listening on, leave a review if you can. We really appreciate that. And let me know what else you want to hear about most. What are your struggles and where can we potentially lend a hand? Get in touch with me at charliewilliamparks@gmail.com. There's an Instagram, there's a TikTok, it's all over the place. And if you're subscribed, at the very least, you will know when episode 3 comes out. And lastly, please know you are appreciated. I appreciate you, and I really hope that I see you right back here next time. Thank you so much.